Hey guys, turkey season is in full swing right now, and if you are planning on getting after it, make sure to pick up some Meat Eater Phelps turkey calls to stuff into the old turkey vest or into your fanny pack right now. I carry a few different things. I like to use mouth calls, and I like to use pot calls. Mouth calls or diaphragms, I like them because it gives you hand-free calling, meaning when you're working a bird up close, you can have your gun on your knee, finger on the trigger, ready to roll, and still be making turkey sounds. I like pot calls because I just like pot calls. I enjoy calling with a pot call. Whatever direction you go, including a box call, which I don't personally use too much, but they're fun and great, and I started out with them. Yanni, on the other hand, one of my main turkey hunting buddies, he loves box calls. And what's funny is I'll now and then look to him and give him the look that means get out your box call and find us a turkey. So it's not that I don't like him. I just have Yanni use his. Then I don't have to carry it. Go to Phelps Game Calls. Get calls that are made in the USA and get calls that'll get them close. Find yours at phelpsgamecalls.com today.
I'm Tyler.
And I'm KC.
And you're listening to
the Element Podcast. You're giving me the thumb. 2 thumbs up, 1 thumb sideways.
That's right.
Man, welcome, y'all woods people. Welcome to the Element Podcast. Brought to you by First Light Gear. We are hanging out just at home. Feels good to be home, you know.
Man, it does.
I mean, the weather's been weird. It was like chilly when we got here, and now this morning I woke up and it was like warm. It felt like, normal. Mm-hmm. So we've been through some different weather. We've been through a couple of states personally, and we actually have done the Rut Fresh podcast for old Mark Kenyon on Wired to Hunt recently, where we talked to a bunch of people, and they all experienced some pretty good things going on during the cold weather. Mm-hmm. I'd say that we kind of did too. And I was seeing trail cameras at home when I was gone that were lighting up as well during that cold spell that we had, that little cold front.
Probably, I mean, I didn't hunt it, but it possibly could have been one of the best opening weeks in East Texas in quite a while. Yeah. I feel like.
Yeah. I mean,
There's a lot of deer running around.
I'd say you're probably right, man. What just happened? Okay, there we go. When I got home, I actually hunted an evening, and I had about maybe 5 or 6 million pigs show up that evening, and they chased a doe off. So I can truly say that deer do not like pigs, and I think we've said it before on this podcast, but mm-hmm. I listened to pigs get up out of their bed, start making noise, start working their way slowly over to where I was sitting to eat some grass and stuff. And then me and Michael were sitting there and heard what sounded like a grunt, but it was so consistent and so many times. He was like, "What?" He's like, "What? Did you hear that?" I was like, "Yeah." I was like, "I don't think it's a deer. I think it's pigs." Anyway, probably a couple minutes later, this doe walks out and stands at the field edge and for sure grunts a couple times and then runs away, and pigs come out behind her like 2 minutes later.
You think she was looking for a fawn?
I don't know. She wasn't really bleating. She was grunting, but maybe.
Well, that's what – so –
I feel like she almost was like hearing those pigs and thinking that they might be deer or something. It was weird.
I did a little deer hunting earlier in September and didn't develop into anything, so I don't even know if that makes a lot of day. But we had a doe come in grunting like that cadence style while she was kind of trotting, and then she went over and found her fawn. But it's kind of late in the year for that now. I don't. Who knows? Mm-hmm. But deer are weird, man. We only know just a tiny bit about what they actually do.
I know. They are weird, man.
That's why I like elk are this way, too, because they're even more vocal. But I feel like you about near can't make a bad noise on a call whenever – because deer, they do all kinds of stuff.
Yeah.
It's the thing is it's usually not very loud.
Yep.
And I think that's kind of the thing that maybe – and I grunt loud a lot, but it's usually to get a hold of something that's way out there.
Yeah.
But, like, I think you can go bleep, 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 and like
Just a
they
mallard
would,
feed call.
yeah, I guarantee you they would be
Kaylee
like, oh,
that,
okay.
by the way. Yeah, the
We got a story to tell here in a bit. Yep. Mm-hmm.
So the pigs are weird too, by the way.
They are.
They came real
Creepers.
close.
Mm-hmm.
Michael. So here's the thing for camera guys, which maybe one day they'll do a camera guy podcast. They can talk about this. Who knows? But if they do, they would say things like this: when you're sitting there and your hunter hasn't really put you in a great spot where there's a bunch of deer running around, your small wins are like grade A footage of other either game or non-game species that aren't deer.
Dude, listen. So we talked about Nebraska already last week, I believe. If you haven't listened to that, it's on YouTube.
Yeah.
We launched a podcast on YouTube specifically, and it's not on the podcast feed. So hopefully that doesn't hurt your feelings. But we decided to do that last week. So go listen to that if you haven't. Tyler and I had some success in Nebraska. I hunted with Michael. He was going to shoot some does. Well,
I thought he did shoot some does.
Well, when they do the cameraman podcast, he can tell you all about what happened. I can tell you what happened to me. I had a camera arm.
Yeah.
And Michael almost knocked me out of the tree because he saw a squirrel to film.
Oh.
He was like, went into cameraman mode right away and wanted to go small win and just get the best squirrel footage
I don't know if you can beat the squirrel footage that Eric got in Nebraska.
I believe it.
I don't know if you can. No. I don't think so.
Dude, if you go back into the logs of element lore, the olden days on YouTube from 2017 or 18, Tyler was hunting a deer, an infamous buck named Teenager. We were doing some crazy stuff to get in on Teenager.
Buck I never saw.
And him and I don't know if it's documented, but the reaction, you know how they do reaction stuff on YouTube? A squirrel fell from like 40 feet up in a tree. And Tyler and I are in this little wiggle tree trying to just hold it together, laughing so hard. So there's some documentation of that in there for sure.
That buck actually taught me a lot, man, about deer hunting and about deer movement and stuff like that. I feel like that. I think I hunted that deer for 4 years. I'm not sure. I feel like one of those years maybe we weren't sure that he was alive or something. But I definitely hunted him for 3 years that we knew of him being around, I believe, and never once saw him and hunted him a bunch. So learned a lot about him, had him on all kinds of different trail cameras, but just never got to see him. And that one's the one that, like, you know, it's the one that got away, man. It's the one that, like, makes me kind of hurt a little bit, but at the same time appreciative that I got to chase him and learn some stuff. So.
You ever I'm kind of at this point, I've been thinking about this some. You ever get in this situation where you're like, man, I might need to like revisit my thoughts on things because you think you've learned some things, and like, say for instance, last year I had my best deer season ever and I killed 5 bucks and it was great. And right now on deer tags I'm 1 of 3 for the year. Which is not as good. I still can have a great season, and I'm looking forward to the rest of the season. But I guess what I'm saying is, like, sometimes you think you got it figured out, and then it's like, man, do I? And how much do I need to go back and relearn, and how much do I think that I learned was actually an anomaly and not the case, and all that. You know what I mean? You kind of get what I'm getting at. Like, the stuff with Teenager, do you ever feel like some of the things you learned on that aren't actually true?
Probably, you know, I can't directly like correlate thoughts to him right now.
Yeah, sure.
Too great because
It's actually not at all what we plan on podcasting.
No,
That's
it's
probably
not.
why.
Yeah. Well, and just I haven't like it's not that I'm like eating my words here because I for sure learned things while hunting him. But then those things get put into practice like in 2019 and I shoot a deer. And then I learned something also while hunting that deer. And then I put those into practice in 2020. And then, you know, by the time we're at 2023, now like the things I learned have morphed over the course of hunting like deer for years and years in lots of different places. So like it's not that I mean, there's definitely things that I learned a lot about deer that I thought maybe I knew that maybe changed over time. I think we've gotten to the point in the last year or so where like we started to kind of change our minds on what rubs could be. And
Man, we're gonna revisit this. Somebody needs to tell us what the thing was that we figured out.
We figured something out, man. That was that last year?
Yeah.
It was last fall. It's probably about this time. Maybe
Well, yeah. Eric says it was on the way to Illinois on a podcast.
I need to go back and re-listen to that.
Yeah.
Because you
Like
spent some
October
time hunting
20th.
some public in Texas during the middle of the month when we didn't have a whole lot to do, and then learned something about rubs. Yeah, so
That's the thing. I think
maybe it was a rut fresh.
That's probably a good point in the intro to rut fresh.
Yeah.
I think one of the things I learned from your quest for that deer, because I filmed you a lot on that, was one, don't shoot coyotes from the stand when you're deer hunting, and two, the pursuit of an individual deer on public ground isn't a loss, but you better be ready to deal with it.
It's one of the most draining things you could undertake.
And I think any state too. I don't think just Texas. I think that if you're in Iowa and you're chasing, you think about Aaron Warburton back in the Midwest whitetail days. Aaron was after that Ray Finkel, right?
Yep.
And
they also hunted. I think they hunted a big deer at they called it a gate property or something like that. Whatever that property was.
Y'all probably know, but we used to geek out on those Midwest whitetail blogs. Man, it was cool stuff. And Hunting Public still has cool stuff. We watch that from time to time. Actually, the camera guys keep us updated on what they got going on more.
They keep us abreast.
That's right. Jake killed a big deer the other day, looked like. So, and speaking of Rut Fresh, we had Aaron Warburton on Rut Fresh this past week.
Yep.
So go check that out. It came out today if you're listening the same day that this podcast came out. Anyways, all that to say, it's tough to hunt a single deer on public.
For sure, dude. Here's the issue that we ran into, I think, especially starting out at first, is we were hunting a lot of Texas public stuff. Mm-hmm. We had our spots where our cameras were, where like that entire property had one shooter. So you are hunting one deer. Mm-hmm. You can't shoot a deer under 13 inches wide. So you've got one shooter on that property. That's what you get, unless the rut changes something, which a lot of times it didn't on some of these properties. Like maybe if it was a smaller property, especially, like maybe it's a smaller property with pastures on sides of it. So like it just doesn't have a whole lot of travel through, right? It's got deer that live there, just not travel through. You end up hunting one buck. That's what you do. So it ends up like kind of by process of elimination, for lack of a better phrase, like that you're doing that. And that can be frustrating.
At least sometimes you have different parcels or different places to pop to go hunt a different one buck over there. Whereas like with teenager, you about near dedicated that season to trying to find that deer. Yeah. And that gets real tough.
Oh, it does, man. And I think that's why you and I travel more now to places like Nebraska and South Dakota, because, I mean, not just those states, but a lot of other states, we can go to public, and if a shooter buck is, nice 8-point, we got a lot of options in some of these states,
Yeah.
So, there's one right there on the TV, We're actually sitting here watching a brand new video that we put out that is playing. Like it's 15 minutes old.
Are you hot right there?
Oh, sweating.
You got like 4 beads of sweat coming off your head.
You might have seen some of this footage already, but it is the entire season. It's our entire season, the full season from last year, all put together. That at least K.C. and I were on hunts when we were on hunts. So we left old HTH out on accident. We realized yesterday.
Well, did you put like Colorado in here and stuff like that?
No, I guess it isn't. So it's not
really
the
just the
entire
buck
season.
truck stuff.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, I guess it is. So, but anyway, cool stuff. You may or may not have seen them all, but it's worth going and watching. And if nothing else, if you have seen them, it may have been a while because a lot of the stuff released in May, so you might need to refresh your hype.
And now you can find it all in one place.
That's right, man.
Yeah, fun times.
Go check that out. Share
Look at
it
that
if you don't
horizon
mind.
right there.
There you go, Mike.
Yeah,
Lykel, actually.
Lykel. That was my fault. I'm sorry.
Yeah. But yeah, so this is stuff that you can go watch all in one place, like you said. And if you don't mind, we appreciate your support. We always have. Any shares you want to put it on your Facebook or whatever, who knows, send it to your buddies. That kind of stuff, man, means a lot to us. And I'll just say thanks for your support in the past. Anyway, we are going to these places in this video that we're watching that have more shooter bucks, right? And we don't even have to shoot 13-inch wide ones.
That's right, because we can drop our standards and still have a good time.
Yeah, we can.
In places like this.
Guarantee you we can.
Yeah.
I mean, this is the conundrum, man. Like, undoubtedly, Texas in these counties that have these antler restrictions have gotten better for hunting nice bucks. There's no doubt that it has worked. But there's also a bunch of kids that don't get to shoot a deer because they couldn't shoot the old Forky that walked out when they had the chance, the couple of times they might have gotten to hunt during football season or whatever. So, and then there's the guy like me that would really love to go to public in Texas and shoot just a nice buck that's probably 12 inches wide. And if you're being serious with yourself and honest, that a 12-inch wide buck on a Texas, the antlers on a Texas buck body is still a really nice buck. You know what I mean? It's just different. People may not understand that up north, but anyway. So we've been traveling, and we went to South Dakota to try to shoot some of these 12-inch wide bucks. And we actually we did the last podcast that K.C. was talking about that ended up, on the internet, on the YouTube spectrum. We did that from South Dakota, but we didn't talk about it because we weren't done with the hunt. Now that we're done, we can retrospectively talk about what we did and didn't do well. And kind of give the
we're doing
ideas.
that? Oh, I didn't know we were going to talk about the bad stuff.
Oh, we don't have to, we don't have to.
Well, it's going to be a lot longer now because I did a lot of bad stuff.
Oh, I don't know about that. I think you did some good stuff for sure.
Thanks, man. There were some good things that happened.
I know you discovered a spot, and a big spot, but a spot, and it was a legit 2-mile walk.
It was a map scouting thing, using OnX, looking at places. So we show up to South Dakota, a place we've scouted before. And it's funny how you go to a place and you think there's a decent amount of public ground, and then you kind of like scout it and hunt it a little bit, and then it gets a lot smaller real quick because of hunting pressure or just things the deer are doing. This year wasn't quite as bad a drought as some other years, but it still wasn't just like a just awesome green fest, So the deer were somewhat concentrated in places. Long story short, I found a place. If you don't know much about these prairie states, they got a lot of ground, but not always a lot of whitetail habitat. So the whitetails will be in certain areas, and you might have to walk across like a 2-mile cornfield or something to get to where deer actually will live. Corn's cool and deer eat it, but like they got to have more than that sometimes. And so, yeah, map scouted me out a place that you could get to with like a legit 2.1 mile walk, and then you could start hunting.
Terrible.
Yeah.
You told me after you got back, you were like, I kind of realized what we were doing after we left. And I was like, yeah, I realized it when y'all were talking about it in the evenings. I was like, dude, how are these dudes? I mean, y'all legit went into just robot mode.
Yeah.
That's what y'all did.
We did, yeah. Just
because
the walk you just
you were just like, it was like no big deal to you. And I'm sitting here like just thinking, I can't believe they're doing this, and they're just going to keep doing it every day. So I actually went in and videoed you because I had good success.
Well, let's talk about that, and then we'll go into that. So you are a man on a mission when we go out of state. Tyler and I pretty much have like a character that we play. And Tyler's character is to kill a deer real quick, and my character is to just make it last as long as possible.
You like to hunt, man.
Man, I do. I'm wired for it, Yeah. But you went up and had a plan.
Yeah, the plan was to, and we were hunting pretty far apart, man.
Yeah.
It was
Took like an hour to get back to where you were.
We got to kind of base together, out of the same camp, but like where you hunted and where I hunted was like about near completely different, you know. And I knew this was a good spot, and I went. I guess Michael was my video guy, my camera guy, and we went to this spot. We had the success in Nebraska, hung around. Eric shot does, and I think there was several does that were hit for sure, right? No.
Yeah.
No, Eric shot 2 does and smoked them. Y'all get to see that video soon, I think. I'm still putting it together, so as soon as I can. We got a busy week, but maybe next week won't be so bad. And I'll try to get that video out, but it's going to be a cool video. And then when we left, it was the day before opening day for public land peasants from the non-residentville. And we got to do some scouting that evening. Michael and I did. So we set out. We go get a nice little vantage point, try to look at this stuff where buck bedding and doe bedding was going to be together as deer working towards basically a food source, a destination food source at night. And we like sneak in. It's like real quiet, no wind. We sneak in and kind of pop up over the top and crawl in a few yards and just set up kind of down the hill a little bit so we're not skyline and next to these bushes. And we just sit there and start scouting. And we got glass. And it started getting a little bit golden hour, and I hear something moving. And me and Michael it's the weirdest thing. We thought from here to the corner of the room that deer was fixing to pop out. Mm-hmm. And he was like, kind of way downhill. I mean,
some weird way that the wind was carrying the sound or something.
I don't know, or it was traveling up, like kind of like hitting the wall and coming up at us or whatever. Mm-hmm. It freaked us out. But then a buck stands up and I see him. And essentially 2 bucks are in the same general area. One has to kind of cross a beaver dam. And they kind of work together over the course of the next hour from this deep, thicket bedding, willows and stuff, and they work past what I call a landmark tree. If you haven't seen these videos, we did a set of 6 videos, I believe, a couple years ago on like some of our best like tips where you should hunt if you're gonna go hunt public land.
Public land pins.
Is that what it's called? Yeah. Something like that, yeah.
And
we did a podcast series too, right?
Maybe. Yes.
We might have done a podcast series,
like
but
that.
I know we did a video series.
And funny enough, I was watching a YouTube video yesterday. Wasn't one of our videos. And OnX was running an ad that we recorded at the lodge.
Oh, how about
you remember that?
Yeah.
That was like 3 or 4 years ago.
Been a minute.
I know. They were like, we don't want y'all now. We want you when you're younger.
Y'all too tired.
Yeah.
Got them tired
But
eyes.
yeah, it was kind of the same. It was like the condensed version of that.
Yeah.
And that YouTube ad.
Well,
weird.
I liked them a lot. They didn't seem to get a whole lot of traction. But if you're interested, you can look back a few years in the off season, and we did a set of like 6 videos. One of those videos was about landmark trees, and the landmark tree is something that KC and I we've come up with these different concepts because we grew up hunting East Texas public land. Mm-hmm. And you got to have – I said this in the buck truck episode of Arkansas at the beginning. When it's just monotonous and there's not very many deer, low deer density and stuff, like guys just have to come up with theories so that they have a reason to be in a spot. Otherwise, you're just hunting in the woods, right? Mm-hmm. So anyway, it makes us more observant, I feel like, to hunt places that are hard to hunt. So, if you're into suffering for a couple of years, you can really learn some stuff. But landmark trees was an idea you and I came up with this whole idea that like even in like thick brush, if there is a tree out in the middle of like an old burn that's like 8 foot tall, mm-hmm. you still will have deer navigate to that tree because they can see it as opposed to not being able to see anything else around them. It gives mm-hmm. a direction of travel. So in this particular area, there's a landmark tree that these 2 deer work by right at dark. One of them ends up scraping on that tree, and
that'll put you in the mood.
oh, I'm telling you, dude, I was about ready to make a scrape for sure. So the next morning, it was kind of hot, muggy a little bit. We get out there early, get back to our spot, and I'm thinking, man, we may not see everything, but we had ended up seeing like 15 deer that night come out of all this stuff in this bedding. And the next morning, we saw 3 does come back to bed, and that was it. We were out there early. I mean, we were sitting in the dark, and so I was kind of a little worried, but I was like, man, I just think because also as it got light, they all of a sudden just took off running and ran to bed.
Hey guys, turkey season is in full swing right now, and if you are planning on getting after it, make sure to pick up some meat eater Phelps turkey calls to stuff into the old turkey vest or into your fanny pack right now. I carry a few different things. I like to use mouth calls, and I like to use pot calls. Mouth calls or diaphragms, I like them because it gives you hand-free calling, meaning when you're working a bird up close, you can have your gun on your knee, finger on the trigger, ready to roll, and still be making turkey sounds. I like pot calls because I just like pot calls. I enjoy calling with a pot call. Whatever direction you go, including a box call, which I don't personally use too much, but they're fun and great, and I started out with them. Yanni, on the other hand, one of my main turkey hunting buddies, he loves box calls. And what's funny is I'll now and then look to him and give him the look that means get out your box call and find us a turkey. So it's not that I don't like them. I just have Yanni use his. Then I don't have to carry it. Go to Phelps Game Calls. Get calls that are made in the USA and get calls that'll get them close. Find yours at phelpsgamecalls.com today.
I was like, okay, they're just weird about being out in the daylight right now.
There was a theme this whole week of deer not lollygagging in the mornings.
Yeah.
Mornings were super tough.
Mm-hmm.
Like deer just got to where they were going to be quick.
Yeah.
And it wasn't even like hey, it's 90 degrees. It was like not bad temps.
Yeah.
But it was strange.
Yeah, you're right. It wasn't hot, but it wasn't cold.
Mm-hmm.
And it was just, they were just in, like, it almost like they needed cold weather to promote the morning movement, you know?
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, the story I won't make long, but essentially, I said, you know what? I'm gonna go to that landmark tree, even though I didn't see the pattern twice. I only saw it once. I'm gonna go sit back by that landmark tree because I actually ended up seeing 3 bucks carry past that tree the night before, and so I went and sat in the landmark tree. We had like a 25-mile-an-hour wind. We went and set up, so we could get up in there and I didn't even have to just make sure that nothing metal tinked. You know what I mean? Everything else is just like easy. You just climb up and do it. We did kind of particular. We were particular about like
Tinked is funny.
Tink 69 on them. But we were particular about the scrapes. There was one big scrape on the tree, and I kind of had Michael just he backed off the tree and sat with all our gear, and I would just have him bring me stuff around that and don't touch any limbs kind of thing, you know. So you guys just trying to keep ground scent and whatever scent to a minimum.
Mm-hmm.
And just entering from the downwind side pretty directly too. And so did that, and we set up and we're waiting, and I can't remember why, but KC kind of got me and Michael antsy. Was it KC that got us antsy? That we thought nothing was going to show up because it got kind of late. He had said something that you and I were thinking about and considering. I can't remember what it was. And anyway, so it gets late. Like it's like sunset,
Mm-hmm.
and we hadn't seen a deer. And I'm just
not fun, huh?
And the wind's blowing, and I'm like, man, I wonder if the wind's got them shut down or whatever we're thinking. It's like, man, maybe this isn't going to happen. And all of a sudden, I think it's 5 or 10 minutes after sunset, all of a sudden deer start moving, you know. And I was like, oh man. So all these does start pouring out, and I'm like, this could be good. And I'm just looking, and I look down the willow line, and here comes the big 8 that I'd seen the night before. It's actually a 9, I guess. And he is walking right at us. Wind's whipping. These does are starting to get past us and or kind of even with us, right? And when I see this buck, I know that he might come to the scrape. So to get a vertical, like straight down shot in my window that I was able to find, I had to hook my right foot over a limb and hold myself so that when I leaned out to shoot straight down, I'd already practiced this.
Some good tee you got there.
Yeah. And I had to, because I wanted to lean out, hold my tee, and also just I'm shooting straight down, man.
Mm-hmm.
So when I see that buck, he's walking towards us, and I don't have time to look at these does back behind us. The wind's whipping pretty good, so I kind of like slowly lift my leg and try to hook it back there, and I kind of struggle because I hit the tree trunk, and like I finally get it looped around, and Michael's got the camera on him, and all of a sudden that deer just stops at like 40 yards straight out in front. I have no shots, limbs in the way, and he's just like alert, but he's looking over at where those deer were, and I'm thinking, oh, he just sees them for the first time, you know, because he's in thick stuff, and then he stands there for like 3 minutes at least. And I think there's like a 3-minute clip of him doing this. And as it goes on and on, his head's moving more and more to our downwind side, as if these does are traveling to our downwind side. I'm not sure that they didn't. Michael said he thought he heard a blow. And I'm not sure they didn't see me move my foot, even though I was moving it slow and it was really windy. I'm not sure what happened. Either that or they got some ground scent back there or wind was whipping and swirling. I don't know. But they shouldn't have been downwind. And anyway, he was locked up for forever. And I'm literally a flamingo on this platform. Left foot, this is my weak leg. I'm struggling. I'm like, please move. I'm fixing my knee's going to give out, do the Greg leg. It's going to be bad. So he finally moves. But when he does, he runs. And he runs to the other side of the tree that I thought he was on the path to come to. He runs to the other side of the tree. And he's kind of getting out a little bit. He's like running at these does or where they were, kind of like as if they're spooking. And so he's spooking. So he runs to like probably 30, 35, kind of on an angle and stops. And I could shoot him, but he's really on a bad quarter too. It's not like, I wouldn't call it a hard quarter. It's just like a lot of shoulder in the mix there, you know. And so I decide I got a big window.
Can we kind of visit why you are wary of such a thing?
Yeah. So last year, I shot a deer in the daggum point of the shoulder, and the setup I'm shooting does not want to go into that point of the shoulder.
And it wasn't like a questionable angle.
No,
you just hit him.
Shot forward.
Yeah, hit him forward. But that then kind of affects your decision on deer more.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So when he stops, he's like goes back to alert, and I don't want to shoot him. I got a pretty big window that he's fixing to go through, as soon as he takes off again. So I wait and I wait and I wait, and probably, 15, 20 seconds, he starts to run again through my window, and I know the trail. I've ranged the trail he's on. It's like 20, and so he's running through the window. I draw back, and as soon as he kind of gets in the window, I hit him with a bat, and he doesn't. It's windy. I hit him with a bat, and he doesn't stop. And so quickly again, bat, like real loud. I was like, he's fixing to run through the window. I got to stop him. And he locks it up and actually turns and faces almost directly at us. And I was like, oh no, I got to shoot the frontal here at 20, And so I really did take like that split second that literally is a split second, but it feels like an extra 2 seconds in your mind, and put it where I thought, should be, shoot, and it smokes him. I mean, frontal, right where it should go. He takes off, and he's just like, I think Michael called it wheelbarrow or bulldozing is what I called it. I mean, he's just like I'm about near eating dirt the whole way. He goes like 50 yards, crashes, and then gets up and does like a 180 flip.
Oh, yeah.
And then I think he falls, but I'm not 100% sure. It was, it was weird because he's behind limbs and stuff at that point. Anyway, we pretty much knew. But and then another buck came by later and smelled him. And that's how I knew that buck was still there,
Laying
dead.
there. Yeah, how about that?
We watched another buck come over and like smell him for like 10 minutes in the dark. So anyway, we had a party, and that was, I mean, you've probably seen the picture on Instagram. If you haven't, that video will hopefully come out during deer season this year, I'm hoping. So pretty excited about that. But that allowed me to kind of do some stuff and video some different guys and that kind of thing.
Yeah, I want to get into that, but I want to talk about the shot because on that note, our good friend Tony Peterson, which is funny because we are literally watching Tony on TV right now. We're paying attention to what we're talking about, but we're rolling this in the background because we like Tony. Tony just published an article on why you shouldn't take frontal shots on whitetail deer.
Oh, no.
And I apologize to him because I haven't read it because I think it's foolish. But no,
he probably just gives a scenario.
I'm sure
you shouldn't shoot.
A good rider like he is going to play both sides on this a little bit. However, I would say that I don't know, and again, I haven't read it yet. I actually need to, and I will, because I'm a proponent of a frontal shot in certain situations on whitetail deer. I think it's super effective, and I've seen it work very well. So, Tyler, what was running through your head when you were like, okay, I can take a frontal on this deer?
Well, don't miss left and right was my – I literally pulled my pins back to the right a hair. I hit him – I legit hit him right where you should hit him. I mean, I felt like it went where I wanted it to. But when I first put my pins on him, I was left a little bit of where I should have been. And so we talked about this on our stories this past week. But the vertical pin stack on a frontal might be the way to go, man. I mean, you think it's the way to go all the time, but for me, even as a guy who shoots the horizontal pins, I feel like a vertical pin in that situation could be a really good asset. So, like, if you plan to go somewhere and hunt off the ground and call deer in and rattle them in or whatever, a vertical pin stack might be the one you take.
Yeah,
you know?
So in case you're not following what we're talking about here, your sight picture, your bow sight, the pins are the things that you aim with out there, and you're looking through your peep sight. I have a vertical version of that where I have two not LED, what are they called? Fiber optic, sorry. Two fiber optic dots stacked up and down. I don't have anything coming in from the left or right in my sight picture. They come from the bottom. Tyler, on the other hand, has three coming out from the right side since he's a right-handed shooter. Each sight kind of lends itself to certain things. I think that in general, the 3-pin sight is possibly a better sight for whitetail because you have three options there that are all whitetail ranges. 20, 30, 40 is what most people do. However, I like the vertical because it has a clearer sight picture. Instead of three things sticking in your way, you technically only have one.
Right.
And that really opens it up. And ever since I had a target panic thing back in target panic, it's woo-woo, right? But I had a little issue with something like that. And when I went to a vertical, I felt a lot better, and I haven't really had it show up again since. And it's really just anxiety before the shot, pretty much, because I can just see everything. Yeah, really good.
Does anybody make a 3-pin vertical stack?
They do.
See, I would be interested in that.
It's pretty cool, man.
I would definitely be interested in that.
You got to watch out with arrow weight. Whatever. You got to be shooting a fast bow if you're shooting heavier arrows to make it work because of pin gap. You know? But it is pretty cool. I think one of the other things that's different is we both shoot sliders, so you can adjust for yardage if you want to. Most people on verticals, I think, usually use their top pin as kind of like their aiming pin, whereas on a horizontal, you're using your bottom to roll with, right? And there's probably pluses and minuses to both of those, but I kind of like the top pin because it's if you grew up shooting a Red Ryder, it's the same function pretty much. Like you're just using an upright that fits in the thing and shooting stuff. So, yeah you're right. I think that I've shot a couple frontal deer, and it hasn't gone bad for me yet. It probably will one day because that's bow hunting, man.
Yeah, well, and I mean that's for sure what it is. It's bow hunting, man. So
I've had plenty of broadsides go wrong too.
Yeah. Oh, me too. Yeah. And I don't know that I just can remember thinking when I shot that deer, I can still see the sight in my mind, and I was thinking back to it. I was like, man, a vertical pin stack would probably have helped me, because I had to really focus to not just pull left and shoot him, because I was covering up all his body with the right side of the picture.
That's exactly the thing you're into.
Yeah. So and the thing is, you don't realize, like with a deer, I don't know, when you have a shoulder to aim at, it's different. I feel like when you have just like a watermelon in the front on the frontal, it's a little bit more difficult to know how far left you are.
Let me ask you a question. When you're aiming at a deer, are you visualizing the organs inside?
Not really.
I do. And I wonder how accurate it is. See, here's like
yeah.
You know, like, am I really looking at things the right way? But I'm usually aiming in my head at a animation in my mind that I'm making of organs inside of a deer.
Yeah, I think I'm more just, I know, like I've done I've looked at the anatomy a lot, and I think I know where they are, so I have pictures on the outside of where that should
you know
end
which
up,
hair to aim at and stuff
Yeah,
like
I mean,
that.
especially like the very famous, reel that we have of the 50-yard shot with the big deer. I mean, I know, I've seen that in my mind so many times, and I know where it hit. And if you haven't heard, there was margin all around the outside of my arrow within the heart. So in other words, center punch the heart.
It is. I know, like when I watch it, I can tell he's dead. But it's still hard for me to believe that you didn't hit the bottom half of the heart. You know, like you center punched it with a big broadhead.
Yeah.
And there's still like a hole through it. It's not a cut through it.
Yeah.
You know, like,
so that's
wild.
That's kind of something I take into consideration, I guess, when I aim a lot of times, like, where is that spot? And so, but for this particular instance, I was thinking the things we've talked about, plus I was thinking, I mean, that was really the main thing I was thinking. And I also was thinking, I aimed low a little bit because he was on edge a little bit, and he ended up, like you said earlier, or not earlier, but when we were off air, he moved quite a bit before the arrow
20
got
yards.
there. Yeah,
That's a lot.
So I did aim a little bit low, but not like off body or anything. But generally speaking, on a frontal, if you can think about like where the windpipe goes through, there's a hole there, into the chest cavity. So like, that's where you want the arrow to go through. You don't want it to hit the sternum or whatever else, right? So I kind of think about that, and it really is almost like a neck shot from a tree stand. Like you're basically shooting into the base of the neck, and it is devastating.
Yeah.
The deer was dead so quick, and we've seen it with your Oklahoma buck a few years ago.
Not to die, because this isn't like a shot-taking podcast, which we might need to do at some point in time, but like if it hits the right spot, you are literally taking out everything except an aorta. Well, you could even do that. So everything except a brain, because you can cut the lung blood supply, you can cut the air, you can cut the heart, you can cut the arteries going in and out of the arteries going out, the veins going in to the heart. Like, it is
going through
everything.
The neck,
yes,
the veins in the neck or whatever.
Yeah. It's jugular,
spinal.
Yeah. So, and that's the thing too with the frontal as well. Not that you need to be aiming for this, but if you follow what we do, then you know that I hit a deer high on a frontal last year, and it still killed him dead.
You know what's wild to me?
What's that?
People don't complain when dudes shoot rabbits with bows.
Yeah, because they're hitting them wherever and they die.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like you could say that a rabbit. Yeah, no. You could say that a rabbit, is a very difficult. Like, if you took most rabbits, you have a smaller, even if you hit that thing in the rear end, you have a smaller target than what you would have on a frontal of a deer, probably.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean?
For sure.
And people are like, oh, you shouldn't take the frontal. It's like, man, I don't know. I mean, you should be able to shoot accurate enough at 20 yards to hit the frontal right. You know what I mean? Now, there's other things that can affect it, but I'm just saying.
They can move or whatever, but, if you don't want to take risks, then you probably don't need to be deer hunting.
No, or definitely not bow hunting.
Or driving, or whatever else, right?
Hopping into a tree. You probably shouldn't walk to your car from your house.
In fact, I don't know if you should use, binoculars, because that could affect your eyesight long term.
What else do you
Who
need?
knows? Yeah,
Michael, maybe you should wear just eye goggles and masks and stuff like that.
Don't wear restricting underwear because who knows what that does to you.
Yeah, you should probably wear steel-toe boots all the time.
That's a good idea. Yeah. Masks for sure.
I knew you would like that one.
Anyways, well done on that buck, Tyler.
Thanks, man.
Yeah, he was cool. It was pretty awesome to just get to go have the party the first day there. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it was. I was glad he was dead because last time we had a party early on, we were partying in the woods trying to find a buck that was not dead, and we did the hardest thing we've done, and everybody had to miss their hunts the next day because, Joklahoma Jones couldn't make the shot. But
it's a lot easier. I mean, I'll do whatever you need me to do, man. But I tell you, it is easier to miss a morning hunt whenever you recover a deer than whenever you go chase one.
Oh yeah, I know. And because of that, I was able to try to help some other guys. I got to do some bird hunting and stuff,
which was cool,
which was fun.
Yeah.
But I was able to go film you way off down, the middle of nowhere, 2 miles back, and we almost pulled off the 18 thing again.
Dude, it was real close. So we kind of started this podcast with talking about the place I found, and then got back to Tyler's success. I had a harder time finding bucks. So I didn't, at the initiation of the hunt, didn't bail off back this far. But there's a lot of things I had going on that kind of led to this. One was that it was not a cold front week, but every day got progressively cooler, like fall arrived in the first week of October where we were. So the first 2 days were almost just like, man, let's hunt stuff that's not our number one because we're going to mess it up. It's going to be too hot, and deer are going to come in after dark, and we're just going to bust them trying to get out of there, So that's kind of where that went. And then by day 3, I think it was the first day to go in there, and we went and scouted in the evening. We just kind of walked in, which, talk about dumb. We walked like 2 miles to not even like officially hunt. We I had my bow, but we figured out some things. Saw some good bucks and tried to get a pattern on them, which proved to be difficult later in the week. So where we went was really cool. It was just deer doing deer stuff outside of the influence of agriculture because it was so far. It was just a creek bottom.
Man, I like that.
It was sweet.
That's a big time learning experience right there. I feel like
it was hard.
Yeah,
because to kind of move this along quickly. That evening we saw deer going east, and we're like, okay, all the deer are headed east somewhere to go eat at night. Well, you go in there the next morning, and they don't all show back up. And then all of a sudden the deer's coming from the north. And then there's deer still going east the next morning. And what you realize is they are just they have everything they need down there, and they just kind of go where they want to depending on whatever stimulates them at that moment. So
now you got to use like terrain to just make sure you don't get winded the best of your ability.
And that's still tough because there was the highest concentration of deer I may have ever been around was there. Now, they weren't there at the end of the week after we'd done some bumping, but
Humpty bumpty.
Bumped a dump. So anyways, Michael's dying over there. We went in there, hung a set one morning, and left it there, hunted it a few times, and had deer around. We just never had a shooter buck within range of that set. And then later in the week, whenever you went back, I hunted and Greg hunted, and then you and Chris filmed each of us, which was really nice because I wanted you to see the place, and I wanted to get your take on it too, because it's always good to just get as many good hunters' opinions about things as you can, because I kind of had like a – what's the like a good way to say this? You ever give like a kid a toy that's kind of a couple age classes over them?
Yeah.
And they think it's cool, but they don't know what to do with it at all, you know? That's kind of what I was like down in there hunting, because it was awesome. There was deer going everywhere, but at the same time, I was a little bit overtaken and probably pretty tired too, because we were going in and out every day.
Yeah.
Twice. Mm. So you're looking at over 8 miles just of walking in and out. And that's, a good drive from the house. So sleep was definitely lower on the totem pole than what I like to usually have it. So anyways, we walk in there.
Chris shot a buck too, by the way.
He did.
I just wanted to mention that.
Yeah, that's right, man. That's why he's able to come film as well.
Call it a spork. It's kind of a spike, kind of a forky.
Yeah, for sure.
Wasn't quite a spork as Greg's,
but if you've watched some of our South Dakota stuff in the past, Chris kind of has I wouldn't say struggle, but he missed the mark one year on a really big buck, and now he's like, you know what, I'm killing a deer this year.
Yeah, dude, super happy.
Yeah.
I was happy for him.
Me too, and his recovery was easy, so we made it home in time for supper and all kinds of stuff. Yeah, dude. That's all about it.
It's kind of like a Eric Nebraska doe recovery.
That's right, man. So we go in there. You and I are together. We get there a little bit late because we had a work meeting, which is just the best when you're on these trips. But we were walking in, and it was like probably 4:45. And this is a thing I noticed about that place, is that the deer were on their feet early, potentially all day. I don't know for sure, but I never went in and out when there weren't deer standing somewhere. And it's like, well, what do you do? So we kind of crest this hill and see a group of 17 does standing on the side of the hill about 400 yards away, eating, kind of oblivious to our presence, which is nice. And Tyler goes, oh, there's bucks, or something like to that.
I had to say it 3 times because the wind was blowing so fast.
Oh, my goodness.
You didn't hear me the first 2 times I said it.
No, I didn't. Yeah, and I still couldn't believe it when you said it. But we find these bucks that are bedded in the middle of an opening, but with their backs up against, it's kind of like a shoal is what I would probably call it, is an old oxbow type deal where at some point in time the water ran through there and piled up a bunch of dirt, and they were kind of backed up against that dirt with the wind over their backs and sun at their back as well. And we kind of like made a plan because we didn't know what time they were going to get up. Actually, they were on their feet when you first saw them.
Yeah.
So we're like, whoa, what's
weird.
going on?
Like by the time you looked, they were bedded.
Yeah.
That was weird.
Bedded down quick.
Yeah.
So we don't know if they stood up from there, ate a little bit, used the bathroom, laid back down, or if they came into that spot. But either way, we're like, okay, we got to make a move on these things quick because who knows how fast they're going to get up, which isn't that big of a deal in that country because you can get behind some terrain and cover ground, and also it's super windy, so it's not really a problem to, make ground. Even if you are, I wouldn't suggest it, but even if you are exposed at distance, everything's moving, so it ain't like that big of a deal. You just don't want to look like a Sasquatch real bad, So, long story short, we are able to get very close because it's windy. We get within about 60 because I'd marked him on Onyx where I thought he was, dropped a pin there.
You're good at that, man. You did a good job of that.
Thanks, man. Another tip on that is take a picture. If you can see where they're at, take a picture that's like a human's eye view, not through your binos or anything, but just take a picture. That way when you get there, you can kind of line it up with whatever you're seeing. And that was actually pretty crucial because there were some plum bushes that I thought were way further out than what they were. And I was able to, with the wind, stalk up to about 16 yards from this deer. I could see his rack, his head, and a portion of his neck. And then everything else was covered with grass. And I thought that was all covered with ground. I thought there was like dirt between me and him. So no shot. I drew 4 different times. Every time he'd get nervous and whip his head around, I would draw. I'm within eyesight of this deer. He could see me plain as day if he looked up, but he wasn't. I was, pretty well behind him and took it real slow so he didn't see me walk up at all. I was concerned about my shadow, and it was getting longer as this went on. This went on about 25 minutes. And finally, on my 4th draw, I go to let down because he doesn't get up, and I can't hold it for 25 minutes, right? So I'm trying to, work through that of when do you how long should I keep my bow drawn? And I'm just trying to time it out to where, he gets up whenever I have my bow drawn. Well, that's hard to do. I let my bow down the 4th time, and when I finally have a not-so-smooth letdown, my arrow doinks, and the deer hears it.
Tinks.
He tinked, yeah. He really tinked after
he was tinked off.
Yeah, that's right. He did a big buck thing where he didn't stand up and look. He didn't give me a second. He just got out of Dodge. And I was at full draw, and, of course, I don't take a running shot. I'm not even that risky, but I could have shot him in the neck and killed him, like absolutely 100% sure of it. But in full disclosure, when you film your hunts, you just don't need to do that kind of stuff because
you saying people don't like neck shots.
They don't like neck shots. I actually shot one in the neck last year on accident.
They didn't like it.
They didn't like it. Some people did. I thought it was effective personally.
Butch Smith like it?
He loved it. He thought it was sick.
I guarantee you.
That's right, man. The real ones know, bro. But I had a shot on an elk like that a few years back, and I didn't take it. Same deal. It's something that some people could pull off, and maybe I'm one of those people. But there's an example to set to people who might be amateurs that and I don't mean that in a negative sense, but like newcomers to hunting, that you don't want to show them that it's okay to do that. You get what I'm saying? Like, we're out there to kill deer, and I have a lot of killer instinct to me. I like to kill stuff. But in that case, it's like, man, it's not worth it. It's not worth what all could happen from this situation. And looking back, after I bumped the deer, we went down there. I stood in his bed. Tyler stood where I was. I had a shot to his body. I just couldn't see it because it was in the shadow. I could have shot through just a very thin strip of grass. I mean, so much that it wouldn't even affect anything, and it was right on him, But you don't know what you don't know.
Yep.
And I'm happy that I didn't wound a deer. So that's how that encounter went. After that, we hunted it one more time and considered it pretty blown out after that. It was a crazy windy day and super cold, and we didn't see many deer, so we were like, I guess that's that. And then the next night we went and hunted a little spot that we'd found that we're kind of saving for the last day, thinking we might shoot some does, and sure enough, had a big old 8-point come in. I thought it was a 9. For some reason, I saw a 4th in my binos when I put up on, and I just kept calling him the 9 until we looked at footage like yesterday. And he came in to like 25 yards, and it was just too dark. I couldn't, or 23. I couldn't see my pins. I don't have a pin light on my sight, so we were up in the tree, real thick stuff, and I came to full draw, couldn't see my pins, and said again, it's like, man, it's not worth wounding a deer, because I fully believe I could about near take that shot with my eyes closed at 23, but again, what's it worth to you?
Yeah.
Shot a nice buck in Nebraska, and I've got meat, and I'll kill some more deer this year, hopefully.
Mm-hmm. Guaranteed,
should be,
dude.
Yeah, I'm going to pick up the old turdy one time this year too, so should be able to kill some deer if that's the case.
Yeah.
I would imagine. But yeah, that's South Dakota. From what I know, is there anything else we should cover on that?
I'm glad. I'm looking. We're watching last year's South Dakota where I just tinked on a deer's shoulder, and I'm real glad right now to have some redemption there. I guess for sure, man. Super blessed. So.
Yeah, that's good, man. Way to go, dude. Smoked him. I was looking at his antlers a while ago, and I was thinking, man, that's a big old buck.
He's pretty nice, man.
He's cool, man.
He's pretty nice. I am just real glad I got to do that, but I'm also glad that it freed me up to chase some birds around. And I was hunting sharptails, and I actually shot my first greater prairie chickens.
Those are cool.
I shot 2 of them.
You're cooking one right now, aren't you?
Cooking one. I cooked another one earlier today.
Did you eat it already?
Made prairie chicken and dumplings. Yeah. I don't know what they taste like, but
I feel like you remarked that they are big quail. That's like what they are, right?
That's what they look like.
Are they going to eat like that?
I don't know. We'll see.
You're going to need a deadgum, like, hatch chili to make a popper. They might make a jalapeno big enough for one of those things.
That's right, dude.
You
can't just make a popper out of it.
You take a whole square of Philadelphia cream cheese and just stick it on
That's
there.
right. Put it in a half a pumpkin
And eat
shell.
a whole pork belly to use as the bacon. Just wrap it.
Come on now. Hey, dude. Sounds good.
Yeah, man, for sure it does. Well,
anyway, that was a fun deal, man.
It
for
was,
sure.
man.
And I'm glad we all made it back safe, and we're gonna regroup. I've already cleaned my truck out and reloaded some stuff, and
good for you.
we are regrouping, and we're gonna carry on, and we're gonna smoke some more deer. So I'm glad you guys are listening and following along and able to watch some of our videos here and there. And it means a lot, like I said earlier, that you guys support us. Don't forget, if you want to go watch that video, Buck Truck Series is fully incorporated into one video, and you can watch the whole thing as you go to sleep tonight if you want. And it'll still be on when you wake up in the morning.
Link will be in the description.
Yes,
Remember,
sir.
keep up with us on our day-to-day on social media. We've been trying to be a little more interactive on stories, and we'll probably continue a lot of that. We're going to do some Q&A stuff. That stuff is really fun throughout this time of year because it keeps us all sharp, puts us in scenarios, and it's going to help y'all as well, we hope at least. So remember to follow along with what we got going on this deer season. Y'all remember to have fun when you're out there, and remember, this is your element.
Live in it.
Hey guys, turkey season is in full swing right now, and if you are planning on getting after it, make sure to pick up some Meat Eater Phelps turkey calls to stuff into the old turkey vest or into your fanny pack right now. I carry a few different things. I like to use mouth calls, and I like to use pot calls. Mouth calls or diaphragms, I like them because it gives you hand-free calling, meaning when you're working a bird up close, you can have your gun on your knee, finger on the trigger, ready to roll, and still be making turkey sounds. I like pot calls because I just like pot calls. I enjoy calling with a pot call. Whatever direction you go, including a box call, which I don't personally use too much, but they're fun and great, and I started out with them. Yanni, on the other hand, one of my main turkey hunting buddies, he loves box calls. And what's funny is I'll now and then look to him and give him the look that means get out your box call and find us a turkey. So it's not that I don't like them. I just have Yanni use his. Then I don't have to carry it. Go to Phelps Game Calls. Get calls that are made in the USA and get calls that'll get them close. Find yours at phelpsgamecalls.com today.